Yo, what's good? What's going on, guys? Ethord, how you doing, man? Trying to bring you up. You want to raise your hand? I can. I sent you an invite to speak, but I don't know if it's working so well. What's going on, guys? Let me share my screen here. I wanted to bring up some stuff. We're gonna get. What's going on, dude?
Hello. Good morning.
How's it going, man?
Are you in New York? Or are you in Costa Rica?
No, I'm in Costa Rica. Jake's holding down the fort in New York. One other team member's up there. So yeah, Jake, luckily for me, volunteered to do all the meetings, all the meet and greets, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I was happy to be able to skip NFT NYC this year, man. It was like I've been to like the last 2 in a row, and just seeing those like empty rooms. I'm like, man, I'm not missing that. I'll be honest. I do miss, like, I really enjoy meeting with people, one-on-ones, but it's like, almost like, why do we have to even have a conference? It's almost like somebody needs to just do one of these conferences and then like just set up like bars for people and coffee shops for people to meet. I don't know. That seems to be the way it's going. I don't know if you guys saw any of those videos of like just empty rooms. I saw one where somebody was doing a panel, and it was literally, there are 3 people up on the panel, and there's a giant like gym size room, and there's 5 people in chairs. It's like, I don't know. I can't imagine anything more of a bummer than that.
Ooh, that's tough.
Bro, yeah. It's tough, man.
It's super draining to do those conferences either way, but I don't know. I mean, I always hear about the fun. I haven't got to experience one myself, but I feel like, right, it's when we're in a downtrend right now, it's gonna be a different vibe than 2021, and hopefully what we're gonna see in a couple years if we continue these four-year cycles.
Yeah, I mean, I always look back. There's a great video of Andreas Antonopoulos, the hardcore Bitcoiner, doing a talk in like 2012 or something like that. And there's literally, like, it's the same deal of what I just described. There's literally 10 people in like the hall. And you think, well, hopefully, that's what it is. Like, hopefully that's where we are on the curve. Which I know you guys all believe that, but it's like, are we? Hopefully. I don't know. Leo, what's your feeling on it, man? When was that? Oh, Leo's got the best thing. He just does virtual conferences, man.
Look, I mean, I'm not the best to comment on in-person events, but I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like, I think there's a subset of people who like really, really like them. And I think there's like obviously huge communities that get built around, the utility of the like NFT collection is being part of the community and having access to these like crazy I don't know, you see the videos on Twitter of these like kind of crazy parties and stuff. So
yeah,
I mean, I think that's a completely valid, thing. And, there's going to be certain people who like really like that, and that totally makes sense. And then there's people who are like me, maybe we're a little more laid back. And I just think the internet's like really, really efficient. I like remote work.
totally, dude. Totally.
Yeah, I don't know, but I do think there is something to in person that we haven't been able to replicate on the internet yet, that I think we could get closer to with some sort of like, more powerful metaverse 3D experience, but it's probably like 10 years away to really feeling like you have that kind of one-on-one connection that you would have while being in a room with someone in real life.
Yeah.
Leo,
that presence.
Have you ever gone to any of those conferences just stealth mode though?
Yeah, people have asked me that. I really have not. I promise I've never been to any of the conferences. I do think, I mean, it's not the worst idea. It sounds kind of fun.
You'd have to hide your voice a little bit though. You'd be like, maybe wear a mask, a little voice changer.
I would have to take off my Satoshi card cloak when I went
there. Speaking of the cloak, and I don't know if you guys saw it. And I just brought it up on screen for anybody who's on the YouTube page. But a true grail changed hands. I don't know if you guys saw that J-Dog was able to pick up a Nakamoto card. I don't know if that popped up on any of your radars.
So tell me, how much is a million?
So this is the crazy stuff. Okay. So just to give some context to people who maybe don't know. So Nakamoto card, pretty much, other than maybe the Homer Pepe, is considered the most valuable of all the Pepes. Right. And so he supposedly bought, so he traded it for 1 million Pepe Cash. Okay. And I don't know the current price of Pepe Cash, but he bought that 1 million in Pepe Cash for $1,500 like 3 years ago. So basically he just got, he's over the moon, right? Because, he was able to get this done. So yeah, whatever, he, in his tweet he put out, he waited, he bought 1 million Pepe Cash for basically $1,500 almost 3 years ago, and then was able to work out a deal where he traded that 1 million Pepe Cash for one Nakamoto card, which is pretty sweet. I was pretty happy for him. You guys all know J-Dog, and just a real valuable asset in the space. There's no doubt about that. And so it's pretty nice to see him get that kind of huge win.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if anybody deserves it, it's him.
Yeah. So just so if you guys don't know, J-Dog is the one who kind of keeps X-Chain running. Just very involved. Obviously, has been very involved in getting Bitcoin stamps up and running, getting the Doge stamps up and running. Just super supportive and always kind of out there working and doing. And so it's pretty awesome to see. Yeah, Dogfather.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, there were like discussions in the Telegram groups whether someone wanted to do some wash trade and was surprised that someone was actually sitting on 1 million Pepe Cash and actually taking that offer. So we will never know, but we know that now J-Dog is sitting on this rare Pepe, and he was like extremely happy. Obviously.
Yeah. So this supposedly, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this was his second, right? So he's got 2 now. So yeah, I think he's, one's to buy and hold, the others to, trade later on, kind of fund that retirement or whatever. But yeah, it's pretty awesome. We have seen a bunch of stuff, which has been this kind of weird, uber cheap pricing on some of these, what we consider grails. I don't know what your guys' feeling is on that, where, a wallet's asleep for 3 years, it wakes up, and then it sells the thing for $1,000 or something. I just don't see how that's, maybe it's possible, but if you were that early into Counterparty and collecting stuff, would you not even look around? Would you not even read some tweets? I just don't even know, how that's possible. Dogfather, do you have any insight in that? How somebody could be sitting on something for multiple years and then just be like, oh, I got to sell that today, and get on and put it in a dispenser for $3,000 or something like that. Like, how is that even possible? Or an accept an offer, I guess.
I mean, at the end, there are so many kind of interesting and special people around in the space. So you can never rule out such a thing that they're really living under a rock, or, sitting on 10,000 BTC that they don't care. But I mean, that would be one explanation, just some weirdo getting out of, his hole and not knowing anything, not having internet, going to his aunt and then doing that without knowing anything. That's one possibility. The other one is just, just simple wash trading for some tax reason or so.
Yep.
We don't know, because this person is, nobody knew who was sitting on the wallet. That is the beauty, right, in our space. So there's always something to talk about. I mean, that's even better than baseball, NFL, together, where you always can, discuss about the referee or whether this or that was a goal or a foul. That's so cool. I mean, I really love that space.
It's 24/7, 365, right, man? Totally awesome. I wanted to get the next thing I want to talk about is, Dogfather, you put out this cool tweet about, and I'll bring it up right now, about the Dogecoin stamps and how they're moving. You want to talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, sure. Happy to do that. I mean, basically, this just started a week ago or so, and now we have around 10,000 Dogecoin stamps on chain already, which is kind of remarkable, because we know that the Doge Party community is way smaller than the counterparty community.
Which is already really small, right? I mean, that's the amazing thing. Yeah,
exactly, which is also very small. And there we have like 18,000 Bitcoin stamps. And of course, the main explanation is that Dogecoin stamps are way cheaper.
Yep.
So they're super affordable with, let's say, like 8 cents to stamp on. And it's easier because you can use a more functional wallet doing so, and there are less restrictions. So people are just minting like crazy and having fun, and that's one explanation. And let's see where this is going in the next few weeks. So there are a few teams building something like a marketplace and a nicer website. So let's see. I heard some rumors on the street that some people are putting larger collections over there because it's more affordable. So you can have a 1K or 10K collection there with reasonable amounts of money. So let's see. I'm really curious where this is going, and I'm looking forward to that.
One of the interesting things today in the Telegram, a guy was sharing how he figured out how to put an HTML file inside an SVG file, which allowed you to have he put a full video game inside a file, and then he put a music player inside the file. I mean, all this sort of stuff. And it's like, you can run those experiments when it costs you $1, right? And, people aren't really willing to do that sort of stuff when it's, $60, $50 to mint one of these things. So I don't know if Doge Party just becomes like this playground again. Is that your gut feeling right now?
Yeah, a bit so. Yeah, I mean, I'm following the discussions closely, and some people had really cool ideas. And the idea is to have this experimental feeling and this, let's do something very quick, because also on Bitcoin, if you're unlucky and you don't choose the highest fee rate, you wait 1 or 2 days, right? So that's killing the fun. I mean, even if you have the money, sometimes it's just busy. On Dogecoin, it's typically not like that. You wait 1 or 2 minutes and then it's there. So you can change, you can play around, it's cheap. And we also set the rules very loose in order to foster this type of innovative culture. And we can also allow later on HTML files to, put on stamped on Dogecoin. And then it's also easier. Then you can do all kind of cool experiments. So let's see. So now we have some cool music videos already on there. That's really awesome.
Explain that for people who don't, people who are listening and you're allowing more. Can you just talk about that a little? Because I know it's a little bit confusing for people. Like, well, why aren't these stamps included? And so you guys are being much more open about what's included, and this kind of gets into kind of the next topic, which is the ordinals discussion. Can you just go into that a little bit and kind of explain to a layman what that means?
Yeah, sure. I mean, for example, on the Bitcoin stamps, which is a pretty awesome collection and project, they're a bit more restrictive. They wanted to push the narrative that you can everything with Bitcoin, so stamping those. So they only allow for numerical assets, which have these A and then like 19, 20 digits,
right?
Which is, of course, very hard to remember. And it's not necessary, actually. If you spend a few cents on the native currency XDP on Doge Party, you can have a named asset, which is one of the unique selling propositions also on these platforms, because then you can have your Atom token and stamp it, and you could also have sub assets like Atom.1 and until 1,000, and you could have a collection under your name, and just number it from 1 to 1,000, which is very convenient to find and to organize. So Doge Party Stamps, we decided, let's be open, let's decide the artists and the collectors whether they want to have a named asset or a sub asset, and let's not be too restrictive.
Yeah.
And also another thing we relaxed compared to Bitcoin stamps is we allow multiple stamps on the same token. So for instance, you have your Atom token and you stamped something, and 2 days later you decide, that's not that great, I want to reuse my token and put another stamp on there, so another artwork. You can do that, and it's not out of the directory, so it will be shown. So it's not kind of filtered out. And you can have all kind of cool things doing with that. For example, a diary where you have an HTML file or SVG file putting your main thoughts, or maybe your daily tweet, right? Like Leo was telling that, writing about that these days. It should be easy to inscribe your tweets on Doge Party. That costs you 1 cent, and then you can have your main tweet or your pinned tweet. You can put that on Dogecoin until this chain is alive. And we allow these kind of experiments because we think it may be interesting to, experiment with these type of things.
Yeah, we had talked about that with Casey, right? And it was like, well, obviously you can inscribe on an ordinal in the same sort of fashion, right? You can inscribe over it again and again. And from a discoverability, I think Casey settled on, well, they'll always show from a indexing perspective, kind of show the first, but that doesn't mean that other, explorers could be built to show all of them or in a row or something like that. Leo, do you have any sort of feelings on the way that might go? At least with ordinals, do you have any kind of idea how that might play out?
So look, I think these things are definitely possible. I would tend to say like there's basically like a prioritization on like protocol spec kind of upgrades to the protocol right now. And it's just trickier to do something once it's already gotten a decent amount of attention. Unfortunately, like there's just it would have been nice if you like make all the main changes before releasing, but yeah. I totally understand the move fast and just like release this and get this out there and get people using it, and we can use that feedback to inform what happens. But yeah, ultimately it takes like 100 times longer to do any sort of protocol change once you have hundreds of millions of dollars being stored on a protocol. So I don't think, like as far as like adopting things like this, like to me it's like just the parent-child has to be the top priority. It's just so fundamental to how people collect and having provenance. So to me, that's like, if we can do that in the next month or two, like that, I will be a happy dude.
Yep. Which brings us up to the next thing, which is this, an issue with ordinals. And so this kind of like what Leo just touched on, this idea of like, boy, it's nice to have everything kind of laid out ahead of time and then, not have to change things. But this issue's obviously come up with ordinals where, there are these 1,200 inscriptions that haven't been included. And we've had a number of spaces now where this has kind of been debated. And I said in a space the other day, I've kind of waffled on it because it's complex. It's not like, oh, it's not as simple as, oh, these are on chain, they need to be counted. Like, I think we all agree that if they're on chain, they need to be counted. These are ordinals that may not be considered ordinals by the original protocol, but the protocol, everybody's kind of thinking on the protocol maybe has evolved a little bit. And so these should be included because what we think of as the protocol now is slightly different than 2 months ago. Leo, can you give kind of the high level overview for people who are kind of hearing about this for the first time?
Yeah. So look, I think it was about a few weeks ago, Barry Ordinally, who's one of the main developers on the Ordinals GitHub and Ordinals protocol team, is looking through everything and basically finds that, hey, we're not including any inscriptions that were not done in the first input of the transaction, right? So if you wanted to do like multiple inscriptions in a single transaction, only the first one would be included. So unfortunately, that bug means that like this main ord indexer, which is on the GitHub repo that everybody is creating their indexers off of, nobody's including these roughly 1,200 inscriptions. It's probably more now, to be honest.
Yep.
And yeah, basically that was discovered around 420,000. So there's just basically this question of, are we going to include these in the protocol or not? And including them would probably mean you need to bump the numbers around. Every solution I've heard of like, hey, we're going to do this clever thing of like, adding like decimals for the inscription numbers
or flags or negative numbers. Oh my God, dude.
Yeah, it's a mess. It's a mess. But look, I actually have been talking to Barry Ordinally about it, and I haven't shared this, but I mean, look, I think the kind of plan, which is a pretty, in my opinion, probably the right move, is he's working on a PR that what it's going to do is it's going to update that main indexer where every inscription in the main, remember, this is just an indexer on top of the chain. And anybody can change the indexer, write whatever they want. There's already people implementing indexers in Go and other languages, and you can do whatever you want. You can change the code around. This is just a kind of agreement on top of Bitcoin, okay?
Right.
And basically what this PR is going to do is, if merged, it's going to track the inscription number for if these 1,200 were added back and if they weren't. Okay, so it would add the 1,200 back and give a number to it, right? But then it would also do the same parallel tracking as if those were not there. And the end result is it will be not up to this repo to decide what the inscription number is. It will be up to a marketplace. What indexer is that marketplace going to be looking at? Are they going to switch over and accept? When they switch over, they'll basically have to say, hey, I'm going to look at this key value pair or this key value pair on the inscription. And that's like, to me, the most fair solution, so that it's not this one main repo basically determining for everybody what's going to happen. And yeah, it will literally this is similar to how when Coinbase has to decide, hey, are we going to do Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash? Which one are we going to call Bitcoin? Like at the time, it was not even remotely clear. Like nobody really knew.
Yep.
So it's that kind of situation, and it puts it on us. So like with Or.io, like we'll have to make a decision around how we're going to number these things. And yeah, like it's going to be a social consensus thing, and it'll probably play out on Twitter a little bit, and it'll be up to marketplaces. Unfortunately, it is a very split sort of thing. A lot of people are very passionate in both directions here. So yeah, it's I don't know. We can discuss it more, but that's kind of the lowdown.
Yeah, honestly, the person who kind of like opened my mind to it was Joe Looney, who kind of gave this like dev perspective of, hey guys, this actually isn't a bug, right? This is like the way it was kind of originally laid out for the protocol to be. But I understand that there's a gray area there, and the protocol wasn't specifically laid out in one direction, so it could be interpreted kind of either of two ways. And so I don't think there is a way to get a kind of, certainly not 100% consensus at all. I actually kind of did like the idea just from a collectability standpoint, because I know some of the people who inscribe those are, they feel like they're going to get screwed if they're not included, right? Which I totally understand. But I did like that idea, and I think maybe Leo, you were the one who proposed it, of just like, hey, let's leave these out and we'll consider them, the lost ordinals or whatever you want to call it, right? And that would actually create potentially much more value for those. But that in and of itself could be complicated because we already know there were going to be, people within that. Like I think Hashbender said, doesn't matter what you guys do, we're doing it this way. And that kind of creates this like a rift that you really probably don't want in the community. Yeah, Dogfather, go ahead.
I think this is a pretty interesting and complicated situation. Let's say there are two big marketplaces to make it simple. One is going with the old ordering, the other one is including these 1,200. So I'm buying something on marketplace A and sell it at the other.
There you go, man.
Inscription number 690,000, and
Sure.
people value that a lot. And I buy that at the at a discount at the other one where it's like 599,100 or so. So that will be very interesting and also a bit confusing, I think, to many users, because these numbers are important. We know, right? So I mean, 1 million is something, and there's some other cool numbers. People pay a premium. So interesting times, I would say.
I like Luke Dash Jr., who replied to your email or your tweet, Leo. He just said, Luke says, just stop attacking Bitcoin.
Yeah, there's been some passionate replies on that tweet. Lots of I really genuinely, I do not overlap with like the Bitcoin maxis in our filter bubble. Really, genuinely, they're just on a different Twitter for the most part. I just have zero overlap really. But yeah, a bunch of them quote tweeted that, basically claiming, the ordinals have failed. This is what we were trying to say. It's kind of funny to me because it's like the reality is the exact opposite's happening. Like it's just forcing us to come to consensus about this, and it's forcing us to come to a kind of conclusion. And ultimately, it boils down to like exactly what you said, Adam. Like, how are we going to interpret, what is valid and what is not? And going forward, I think we need to kind of clarify what we as a community believe is a valid ordinal inscription, so that we don't need to renumber again in the future because we don't have indexing bugs like this. There was a issue, all the way down around like number 500. And this was inscriptions, that were not included for a slightly different reason.
Yep. That
most people kind of feel wouldn't necessarily make sense to include, but they were just using the envelope incorrectly. So they weren't using the ordinal envelope basically. But, somebody could easily come and, make an argument, hey, we got to bump everything else again because of these guys. So, I think it's a lot more straightforward. Like probably, we need to support multiple inscriptions in a single transaction. So like long-term, that needs to be part of the protocol. Just it saves a lot of money. It's a very obvious design feature. So, probably it makes sense to include those 1,200, and, it's very tough. My inclination of how this heads now, and I'm really kind of split on this, is I'm kind of seeing probably explorers and marketplaces are just going to shift the numbers and move on.
Yep.
Which is really unfortunate for collectors. It's a honestly terrible user experience to have something like that happen. I do think though, it's pretty straightforward to like index these things, and I don't really see a reason why there would be other issues. This was literally just a pretty gaping hole in the indexing. And I don't really see reasons why other inscriptions like wouldn't be included. It's like you either follow this specific thing or you don't. And I don't really see this being an issue we're going to like have multiple times, but we do have to get over it now. And the reason I'm almost starting to lean towards changing the inscription numbers is because I don't like stuff lingering.
Yeah.
I don't want a year from now.
You're going to have to discuss this. We're going to have to make Twitter threads about it forever.
Yeah.
What these actually are,
Yep. The simplest, cleanest thing is to just probably switch the numbers over. And it's interesting. I'm maybe like slightly flip-flopping here a little bit. I'm trying to think out like 5-10 years from now. I think it would be really annoying to have this narrative in the background. I kind of want to squash that for the long-term benefit. Like we do probably have some, short-term issues. It's probably very, very annoying to certain people who maybe hold a very valuable inscription number like 1 million. But, Yeah, this is like, I've been really, really torn on this, and I'm very happy that we're, hopefully be doing a PR that basically lets the community decide. And, I'm not going to try to be a first mover and push any sort of narrative on people. I'm trying to facilitate conversation, and I'm glad we're doing that here. And, hopefully the, consensus will play out how consensus plays out, and we'll see where we end up. But either way, this isn't the end of the world. So I'm not like super freaked out about it.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I keep coming back to this like idea. It's like, well, if it wasn't necessarily a bug and it was kind of modifying the protocol in a direction that, the core developers feel like this really has to move, doing something like where we say, okay, all of these ones previously weren't included because the protocol didn't include them. And those are but now we do. So after a certain kind of block height, we do include those. And all these ones before are kind of like these, like, the lost ordinals or whatever, does make it more attractive from a collectible standpoint and simplifies a story. But almost either way, there's going to be problems with this. And I mean, we've seen it, we saw it with the Bitcoin stamps originally, but theirs wasn't a protocol level kind of thing. It was just, their indexer was kind of had a bug in it. So they had to fix their index or whatever. But, they were able to do it, fix it in an hour or whatever. And, not much there. You could kind of move on. This is now like, it's just one of those things. We have to get through it. And to get to this idea of consensus though, I'm going to bring up this next thing, which I think is a big deal. And that is, Bitcoin Magazine launching their 23 historic covers, one-on-one inscriptions as ordinals. I think, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but for me, getting to consensus within the Bitcoin community about ordinals and for it to happen this quickly, it's truly, for me, it's incredible that this kind of movement has taken hold this quickly in Bitcoin. I don't know how you guys feel about it, Leo. If you feel like this is a big step. I mean, just for me, it's like, it's almost has the vibe of like having NFTs at Christie's. It's like that sort of thing. It's like where even the maxis, we're convincing a lot of them. Like it almost has that sort of vibe to it. I don't know what you feel about that, Leo.
Yeah, look, what I'm seeing is, we started out with the maxis being pretty upset, and now the maxis are indifferent. That is how I would describe like, I think I think you have to acknowledge that, like, if you actually care about these things you talk about every day, like permissionlessness, you can't stop somebody from doing legal transactions on your protocol. Like that's, it's almost like you're not, like you can't preach that every day. And then just like when it doesn't, when people aren't, doing exactly what you want them to, you freak out. Like this is just super hypocritical. And like, I think anybody, it's so obvious and clear that, if somebody wants to mark sats with random numbers and like trade them, like, why would that be, something that the Bitcoin protocol should be blocking? That would be like very weird to be like anti, people playing like a little game on top of Bitcoin. So yeah, look, I think it's pretty clear, in my opinion, that the turning point in the legacy of this whole like kind of moment here is that all of these other Web3 use cases that have been experimented with on all these other chains they're going to come to Bitcoin now. It's like Bitcoin sat back. It had probably the most to lose, the largest brand name, the biggest blockchain by like market cap. And, it sat back and let the experiments happen elsewhere, similar to how, Ethereum didn't move to proof of stake in 2017. It let, 100 other chains try it first, and then it moved to proof of stake. This is a general trend we're seeing. So I think it's just finally time for, the markets basically, all this like crazy NFT stuff in 2021 and like crazy ICOs and all this stuff, like people realize like, yeah, there are some scams. There's a lot of scams, but there's also a lot of like really dope stuff that people are actually using now. Yep. So, you can't write off, like you're going to have a really hard time writing off every single use case for Web3. It's just like, it would be a pretty like the people that do that, I genuinely just don't think they want to think about it really. Yep. So they just put it in a box. But I mean, it's very obvious that there are real use cases for all these protocols. And totally makes sense that people would want to do that stuff on Bitcoin. And, the largest blockchain probably is going to have, the second most popular primitive, which is an NFT.
So awesome, man. Yeah, Dogfather.
Yeah, I heard people in the Ordinals community complaining about all these financial transactions happening on the Bitcoin blockchain. It's kind of annoying, right? It's making, inscribing just more expensive. They should just do something else, right? I'm just kidding.
Go back to fiat, man. Go back to your fiat if you need to trade.
Yeah, I mean, do Western Union, bro. That should be enough. No, I'm just kidding, but that was very funny today. But actually, with the Bitcoin magazine, because I was following these auction designs a bit, it looks pretty cool. So they have these Dutch auction where you start at 10 BTC and then it's going down, and it's trustlessly included, I think, via the Gamma website.
Yeah. Do we know how that's actually? I mean, I know obviously it's with PSBTs, but how's that work? Do you know how that's actually working? How do they enable that?
I was also just reading the tweet. I think Leo knows way more, but let's say you have 1 BTC in your wallet and then the price reaches that, and then you click on buy for 1 BTC. And then if some other guy in the same block or is observing that and choosing a higher fee, then this guy is the winner and is using this. The technical details, how you see that, and whether you can something like having your reserve price or something, I don't know. That will be very interesting to see. But I think Leo knows these details way better.
No, you nailed it, Doge. You nailed it, Doge Father. I think ultimately Gamma saw this kind of issue in the market where there's no trustless auctions really, and they were like, okay, like this is a great problem for us to go tackle. Like, we don't want to have a kind of 12-fold type auction situation forever. So they went and they built this solution where it's like, 99% like trustless, and that, Gamma's still like kind of manually, I believe, lowering those prices and those PSVTs, and you're like, because they hold the actual assets, right? And then you lower the prices kind of manually. So I don't think it will like trustlessly go to zero the way a smart contract on Ethereum would, where for a fact that the seller isn't going to pull out if the price goes too low. So there is some on Ethereum, there is some nice peace of mind knowing that like you're going to get true price discovery because it's going to literally go to $0.
Right.
But as long as the seller and Gamma here are honest about, it's going to go $32 and really let that go to a price that's fair, like for the market, I think this is an extremely ideal solution, and probably something that more of these like smaller collections should be thinking about.
So are they basically manually lowering it? So they'll put in 10 BTC and then they manually remove that price and then put it in at 9 BTC. Is that how it's kind of manually done that way?
Yeah.
Okay.
When I say manually, I just mean I'm sure it's all automated. But their server is like
take off the offer and then
it.
reinstall the offer basically.
Yep, exactly.
Gotcha. Very cool. Yeah, it's cool. It's going to be exciting to see. When I first saw the 10 BTC, I was like, whoa! But then I realized it's a Dutch auction style. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting to see where these trade. Sometimes you get surprised, and I'm still wondering if we're going to get any like true Bitcoin whales to come out of the woodwork and like actually, really, support ordinals. I don't think I've seen it yet. And, maybe this is the opportunity. Maybe this is actually when it happens.
Adam, Michael Saylor, right?
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good friend of mine. We travel. We do Nantucket every summer.
You're joking. I guess, right?
I'm joking. Yeah.
Okay. So he's constantly tweeting out this, like, I consider it like Bitcoin crypto art, basically. He's like constantly tweeting out.
Yeah, he does a lot of like mid-journey stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, like he's clearly, I don't know if he's the artist or he has an artist, but my guess is like, dude, this guy has to be the domino that falls. Like he's so into Bitcoin related art. Like, I mean, clearly he's genuinely, I'm sure it's like a hobby of his.
Yep.
How can you not start inscribing some of these and collecting them? It's just like, eventually that's the domino I think that has to fall, that onboards a lot more of the Bitcoin maxis.
I'm 1,000,000% behind that. I totally agree. I've said it kind of from the beginning. It's like you just need one of the big players to whatever, get a Taproot Wizard, right? Or, you know, get a D-God or something, right? That's all you need. It's kind of like the Elon Musk effect, right? You need one of the big dominoes to fall, and then all the rest will just kind of fall in line. I totally 100% agree with that one. Yeah, Dogfather.
I mean, the good thing with these covers is that there's typically a person on it, right? And I mean, this person may have some nice wallet and may be interested in buying that cover just to secure it. So that's the advantage over some Taproot Wizard or some other asset, that you can buy your own cover. I mean, that's kind of very interesting. Let's really see how that plays out.
That's
so
interesting. I got to find the tweet from them that shows the different covers. Did I hear right that one of them was is Vitalik one of the covers, or did I get that wrong? Because that would be.
I kind of doubt it.
Yeah,
he wasn't. Like he was it would be weird to be like one of the co-founders of a magazine and like plaster your face in front of the magazine when you're not really famous yet. But I mean, who knows?
No, I had somebody had told. I think I was listening to a Spaces with him, or no, it was with the Spaces I was on with you, with you, Leo, and we had the Bitcoin magazine guy on. I thought he had mentioned Vitalik, but maybe he was just talking about Vitalik as one of the writers in the magazine, obviously. But yeah. So we'll see, man. So that's actually happened tomorrow. So tomorrow at noon Eastern, it goes down, starting at 10 Bitcoin. Get your Bitcoin ready. I don't know. For me, I just feel like, yeah, if there is an outlier there, maybe a whale picks one up and creates a market for it. And I'm just trying to think. We've had a couple of these on Ethereum. We had what was it? Was it the Time covers? But that was in the middle of the bull run, right? So the odds of it, having a huge price. Jake's here. What's up, Jake?
Yo, what's good? We just finished up the historical NFT panel right now. Just got off it, and I was like, oh crap, I'm gonna try to make the show. I think there's time.
Awesome, bro, dude. Tell us all about it, man.
Oh man, so it was the panel. First was me, Sean Leary, and XOAO, that does the historical NFT museum. Really well, a lot of interest actually. Surprisingly, usually on Fridays when you go to conferences, there's like nobody here, but there's actually like a good amount of people still here. This new NFT NYC has definitely been a lot better. There's 10 times more events, and now it's all in one building too, for at least the conference. It's at the Javits Center. They just moved it, so it's essentially like a convention hall. So we're not having to run across the city for all these different speaking panels like it's traditionally done.
Oh, good. Yeah, because that was a pain in the last ones, was like everything was in a different building, right?
Yeah, dude, it made it super hard pain in the ass. Yeah. But yeah, I got here early because of those mistakes from last time. So I got here Monday, and then I'm staying through Monday. Tonight is the Taproot Wizard party.
Oh, so, nice.
That's where I'm going to go tonight. I was at the NFT Now 100 Gala event, watching all the influencers influence, while Twitter was just mad that they weren't on the NFT Now 100 list.
Why did that get so controversial this year, Jake? Because like they did the exact same thing last year, and like I literally nobody cared. Like it was like, hey, congrats for these 100 people, and then this year it's like, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like the vibe was very, very different.
You know what happened this year, and I guess there were a couple of influencers. Look, we're all influencers, but there were a couple of, I guess, what you would call more traditional, what we think of as like Instagram influencer type peoples. And one of them, and I have no idea who she is or whatever, but one of them had basically, pumped and dumped some NFT project. And the moment that list came out, I think, if it wasn't Zach BTC, he was definitely one of the guys who like immediately called her out as, pumping and dumping this project. And I have no idea what it was. And it got enough traction on Twitter that the NFT Now guys, kind of just, pulled her off the list. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say the event was actually like really well put together. It helped me really understand like what NFT now is really trying to do. It did have that like, kind of like prestigious influencer. It did have that vibe for sure, but everyone there was generally pretty happy. I didn't see anyone upset. It's a lot of builders, right? I walk in, it's like, oh, Thread guy, and then you get to talk to K Money, then you get to talk to Matt, right? And you get to talk to all these cool people who are building. But there was also a lot of people there that maybe didn't have big influence or big accounts, but were building like really cool products. And you're like, oh, you're the guy behind Animoca, or like, oh, you're the guy who's behind this. And from being inside the event, it felt like a pretty big community. It gave you a lot of, it gave you a lot of motivation to say it feels like it's going in the right direction. And then you end the event and you go onto Twitter and everyone's upset and memeing it to death. It's just two tails. It's just two tails, or what is it? Two tails on the same side of the coin, or something like that.
So it was like a big NFT.
All,
now did like a big dinner thing, huh?
They did it at the Rockefeller Center, which I know you. I don't know if you live in New York, but you're familiar with it. It was a very like 64th floor of like somewhere in like a big district area, and they definitely threw a lot of money at this. It was like 2 hour kind of like cocktail greetings, and then they did the plated dinner where you get either like sea bass or steak or whatever.
Yo, this is like the secret room of like,
dude. Hey man, they got to use that mint money on something, right?
Dude, it was K Money opened and did like a kind of like a 10-minute stand up or whatever, and that was like the first thing he said is like, "Welcome to the NFT Illuminati." Now, dude is absolutely hilarious. But yeah, that event was cool. I went to the day after. I actually got to meet Eric for the first time. Who's one of the co-founders of Emblem. It's kind of funny how you could work for somebody for 6 months and never know them and then get to meet them in person. Went to the Pepe's art gallery. So there was two. There's the Scarcity one and then the Fake Career one. They're right next to each other. And so I got to meet a bunch of the Fake Career guys. Got to meet Joe and Skrilla and Sean. I think I met all the Rare Pepe scientists. That community, man, is so fucking chill. It's just like you walk in and it doesn't feel like it has anything to do with crypto. But I do have to say it was funny being inside the Fake Rare Museum, because it's on like the corner of like Broadway and something else, and you just seeing a bunch of randos walking by, and they all stop and look into the gallery, and it's like a bunch of random frog pictures, and you just see so many people walking in. They'd be like they tipped it, like it'd be an older crowd, and they like tiptoe inside, be like, "What is this?" Just start dying laughing.
What are these frog things? Were you there for the? I saw they were doing the auction. They did like the live auction. Were you there for that?
That's when I was leaving, so I was heading to like a bunch of different business meetings. But there was a lot of big bids. I think one of those physical pieces sold for like $100,000 or something.
Yeah, it was like
that.
4 Bitcoin for a physical piece. Yeah, it was pretty sick. So, dude, I have a picture of you here on stage at the community stage with Sean and who is it? Is it XOAO up there?
Yeah. There was a girl that was supposed to come, but she had like family emergency or something. But yeah, it was really good. 25 minutes. I'd say there's probably maybe like 30 or 40 people in the crowd. So it's definitely more than half the seats in that little small room. But definitely this year spent a little less time at the conference, more time at side events. Oh, I did go to Mitchell Chan's IKB Invitational.
Oh, bro, that's the best. The hoops, right, man? Hoops and pizza, baby.
It's so funny playing. It's like you meet those people because Douglas was there from Wild and a bunch of artists. And so I'm like, I'm playing basketball and this guy that I'm guarding is like 6'7" or whatever. And I'm like, God, there's no way I'm gonna like fucking like man this guy. And then afterwards I'm like, oh yeah, what's your name? He's like Dimitri. And then I start talking to him. He's like, yeah, he's like, yeah, I created, we were talking about Pepe. He's like, oh, I did a fake rare. He did, it's like, I did the auto Pepe. I was like, oh, you're Dimitri Cherniak. It's just like, I had no idea for like literally an hour talking to him who he was.
Yeah, it's so awesome, man. I love when I went last year. It's just, that was like one of the best times, man. You're meeting all these epic people there. It's Yeah. And so that was, you got to meet Douglas for the first time, maybe in real life, right? He's a good dude too.
Yeah, he's a really good dude. Dude, the things that they were doing there, they're trying to explain to me kind of like what the whole vision was. And I didn't really know that they had kind of like this like kind of startup accelerator studio component to their
Totally.
marketplace. So I was trying to ask him like what the difference was and why Mitchell would do something like this. And I have to say, Mitchell is a basketballer, dude. I know you played with him last time.
Bro, I was raining threes on his sorry ass, man.
Yeah, it was that event. That event was a lot of fun, and then I went to that DeFi stuff to do a little panel on, and for I forget, I think it's called like Savvy, something like that. They originally asked Adam to go, so I had to refill for him. I could only fill in like half of the shoot size for him, but man, this DeFi spot that I went to talk in. First, it was inside of like an apartment, so I had to go through like an elevator to like through like 10 doors. It's like, where am I going? But there was probably 50 to 100 people there, and they were very interested in Bitcoin NFTs. I did a 30-minute panel, and afterwards I had to stay for another like hour, just explaining to people like what the difference was between stamps and ordinals and counterparty. And it seems like there's definitely a lot of interest even from just like these like DeFi protocol or teams that have nothing to do with NFTs.
Yep. Well, I had that transitions kind of into this last tab I had open, which was Chain Left did a nice kind of breakdown of on-chain NFTs, right? And it's it's so interesting, I think, from a historical NFT perspective that we've moved into, I mean, that we landed on Bitcoin as the on-chain NFTs is so amazing. I mean, could any of us have predicted this? Like, how did we not see it?
How did we not see it? We were the people who were the on-chain NFT masters.
How did we
see this?
How did we not see it? I mean, some of us did, I guess. Chain Left did, JP Jansen did. They got it, but we like missed it, and anyway, so I have Chain Left's really nice thread open, and he's done a bunch of these. It's just from the beginnings with Puny Codes, Namecoin, the different ASCII art, FU man, all those guys. It's amazing, and that we've landed on Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is now this like, now on-chain NFTs are Bitcoin, and all the various experiments that are going to happen on Bitcoin now. It's just incredible. Yeah, Dogfather.
Yeah, the funny thing is, I mean, somehow the early works do not get that much traction. So I was recently writing a thread about All Guys, kind of celebrating it when the ordinals were going through the roof. I mean, nobody's reading that.
Nobody gives a fuck, dude.
No, nobody. I mean, you can say, look, this dude was doing that in 2014. Nobody gives a fuck.
Nobody gives a fuck. It's so interesting. I mean, and like people have, I've obviously been tweeting a ton about it's all ordinals and stamps and all this stuff because it's new and it's exciting. And I'll have people in my thread, well, they should know about the first, and you should talk about the first. I'm like, bro, I've talked about the first 1,000 times. But at the end of the day, people care about, I mean, right now, NFTs are, people care about their bags, their ability to make money. Can they make money? Is it new? Is it exciting? They just like, that's why these things are long-term, right? We believe that people are going to care about these long-term. The collectors are going to care about these long-term, but you just have to grow this base, and this base is, they don't care. They don't care. They want to be able to mint these things themselves and create their own kind of new and exciting, groupings of whatever dick butts, whatever the hell they want to fucking put out there. Yeah, go ahead, Leo.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Like, why aren't people caring more? Like, why aren't ordinal people caring more about maybe counterparty? I would have actually expected maybe a little bit more interest, and there is good interest. I'm not saying there isn't, right? Yeah. But it's, to me, it's like just intuitively, if I'm collecting NFTs on Bitcoin, I really would want to know about all of this, like, because they're collecting all of these Pepes, right, on ordinals. Like, there's 100 Pepe collections. Like, I could not possibly own one of those and not spend an hour like learning about Counterparty and Rare Bet Base.
Sure.
It just wouldn't make sense, right? But yeah, I think
but you realize you're an outlier, right? Everybody in this space, we're all outliers.
Yeah, I get it. But ultimately, like, here's my kind of in thought, like that curiosity and that just, yeah, like ultimately that's going to get trumped by user experience. Like I'm just a fundamental believer that, you know, Counterparty, I think the experience for Bitcoin Web3 is an app on your phone.
Yep.
Okay, like Xverse or Hero, or an extension in your Chrome browser on your computer. And, you know, you just save your 12 word phrase, you get an automatically created, you know, address, and then it just works magically. And you click buy, you click transfer when you connect to these sites.
Yep.
The reality is Counterparty, just like, if we need to be honest with ourselves, like that is not the experience on Counterparty.
Yep.
Right. And Counterparty has some great aspects. And when you get into free wallet and stuff, like it's really cool. Like, you know, it's not actually that hard, but it's way too hard for normal people. Yep. Like, you know, it's almost like saying, there was this whole narrative around the full nodes were such a great thing for Bitcoin and early ordinals. And like, I am a user experience kind of maxi, whereas like, you know, I was just kind of sitting there and I just kind of kept my mouth shut. Like this makes absolutely zero sense. Like if the goal is 1 billion people using and transacting on Bitcoin or in Web3 every month, like this is like, you're not going to get to like 1,000th of that number.
Yep.
With full nodes. So yeah, I mean, it needs to be an app on your phone. You click a button. Like this is the obvious user experience that needs to exist. And in my opinion, like we can educate, we can talk about things. You know, I think Emblem Vault is probably the closest thing to upgrading the user experience for Counterparty that it's ever had.
Yep.
But ultimately, you need to probably upgrade the Bitcoin side of Counterparty as well, and probably need a wallet. Like there's, you know, a dozen teams working on wallets that do inscriptions. Nobody's working on the extension wallets or the app wallets for Counterparty. Like it needs to look slick. It needs to look like a 2023 user experience. And I'm going to be honest, until that's released, I mean, I think it's just, you're going to have a really hard time getting people through that funnel.
Couldn't agree with you more. It was literally when I, you know, talked to Mike in Space the very first day, you know, Stamps came on my radar. I contacted him. We had a talk and I said, look, your entire first thing you need to do is I'll get in touch with the wallet guys, and you got to get a wallet. Like you have to get a wallet. And if you don't, there's a hard cap on the number of people we're going to be able to bring into this ecosystem. There just is. And I even sent a DM to Trevor saying, hey man, I really appreciate you doing like drops and stuff for freebies to get people involved in downloading free wallet and learning how to use Counterparty. Like that's awesome. I appreciate you doing that because I think onboarding is really, really important. But at the same time, I also know that that's going to be a very, very small percentage of people. It just is. Like the user experience has to get better. Like it'll get better if you have money and interest. And I think that's really almost magic what's happened with ordinals, like how quickly interest is funneled in. And let's not fool ourselves. The reason it's come in because people were like, holy cow, one just sold for 5 BTC. Whoa, what's going on? And so you get all this development. But now, you know, I got my Xverse wallet, I got my Hero wallet, and it's seamless and painless and easy, right? I mean, that it just makes all the difference in the world. And I'm excited because I think the Stamps is actually going to happen. Like, I can't believe it. But, you know, supposedly, give it a week or so, this might actually happen. And can you imagine if that happens?
Can you explain, Adam? Are you saying there's somebody's working on a wallet?
They're Stamps? Working on, yeah.
See, this is like, yeah, this is foundational. Like we can tweet all we want, you know, we can stamp as much as we want. You know, you have to have the experience that's on par with the rest of Web3. Because people are okay, you know, doing the seed phrase thing. Like, to be honest, that's not even a good user experience, right?
Yep.
But people are okay with like setting up their app or their Chrome extension. Anything beyond that, I'm just having a lot of trouble, you know, talking to people, and I tell them like, go check out freewallet.io. Like when I send that message, I know for a fact that
it's over.
So
no, it's true. I mean, sorry, go ahead, Jake.
I was just say I've actually been also too pretty pleasantly surprised of the development from the stamp side. Right, me and Adam, we talked. I think we're in like one of the first like 20 people in the Telegram, and I mean maybe it's because it's Mike in space, so it's like the Bitcoin OG community. They kind of understand the infrastructural component to it of like what needs to be built, kind of in like what chronological order. I think it also just comes to us as the collectors to really just kind of add that cultural or maybe marketing layer to it. Because Adam and we talked in the very beginning about the Bitcoin stamps tagline where it says like ordinals don't exist or something.
Yeah.
Where like this is literally the worst.
That was my second recommendation after the wallets was get rid of that tagline, bro. Literally.
So yeah, it's more of a team effort, but they're scaling pretty quick. I mean, I don't know if you guys covered it or not, because it came in late, about the inscription service or the stamping service that Mike just put out, where apparently the cost has been reduced by 10x.
No, we didn't talk about that yet.
Yesterday. Have you tried that out?
I haven't tried it yet.
Yesterday. I haven't. Have you tried that at all? I know you're usually on it at first.
No, not yet. I was not. I was super busy today with the Dogecoin stamps, and I'm happy with the 8 cents I pay over there. So, but I have to try it out.
But yeah, supposedly they had a 10x reduction in fees to inscribe on the stampchain.io site, which yeah, is a big deal. You know, it's helpful. But I mean, part of what I realize is you know, as I just talk to people and figure out how they use stuff, is it's stunning how many people do all their NFT stuff on their phone. Like a lot of people do that. And until it's on the phone, they just don't even interact with it. And I think that's obviously one of the reasons Ordinals has, you know, shot through the roof and people are just minting. One thing is the price has come just through the floor to mint Ordinals, right? You know, where you're doing it for dollars now, not even like tens of dollars, just dollars. It's in the single digits a lot of times. Prices come way down and it's just super easy. You can do hundreds now, no problem. And it's easy with your wallets, and you have them in your wallet and you can trade them and pass them back. And, you know, all that infrastructure that's been built so quickly is just incredible. And so, you know, it's interesting. I think actually Mike, he's a lot like Casey. I got to say that they're very, very opinionated, very, you know, hard line in what they believe in stuff. And it's fun to watch how he approaches it. And they just sold at that Scarce City auction. He sold his number 19 stamp, the Shepherd King, that sold for like $9,000. So probably low on what it can be, you know, what he was expecting, but you know, it is what it is. You know, that's what auctions do. Go ahead, Jake.
I had somebody because when it was yesterday, asked me about Litecoin stamps. I was like, oh boy, here we go. But it got me thinking of like, it could also be a trend if people just start forking Counterparty and then putting the stamp model on these like other proof of work or obscure chains. It got me thinking like that's probably a more suitable route for most of these than it is to, you know, build out the whole ordinal infrastructure and all the tools where you could literally just fork Counterparty and start doing stamps on all these other chains. I mean, I told them, that person, I said, yeah, that's basically you have to fork it and copy that model. How you do that, I actually have no idea. I would assume it's pretty simple, but I'm not a dev. But I wouldn't be surprised if that became a thing where you start seeing stamps on some of these other proof of work chains.
I'm sure. I mean, I think, you know, it's already been decided, you know, it's Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is the thing, and the thing that's the, you know, the most enticing to collectors and stuff. I just pulled up, and I thought I retweeted this earlier in the week because, you know, I found it. Somebody had posted it in one of the telegrams or something. I think it was it was a low inscription number where somebody had inscribed Mike in Space tweet where he said a lot of ordinals hate right now, but I'm going to make a prediction. In 12 months, everyone is going to love ordinals, even the maxis. screenshot this and inscribe it on the blockchain. And then somebody did. And it was pretty awesome. I think Leo tweeted it out too. He's like, this is the way all tweets. But does a tweet, or what did you say? Does a tweet really exist until it's inscribed on the blockchain?
If you don't inscribe it, is it real? Something like that.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty awesome. And yeah, that's where we are, man. It's we are in a magical space. It's just incredible, man. Go ahead, Jake.
Leo, I pinned one of your tweets from yesterday. I thought was interesting. Is that real, or is that you speculating? I don't know if you guys covered this either, but I thought it was super interesting.
Are you talking about the tweet that I sang? The tweet?
It was the inscribed to tweet automatically.
Yeah, no, that was me just like going into the inspector and just changing the text. The point I was making was, that is how the experience should be, and there's no reason why it can't be. And basically, PSBT inscriptions are like the direction this is all heading in. So, you're going to be able to do one now through PSBT directly in your wallet in X or Hero, and then long term, the protocol is going to, do this upgrade pretty shortly here to allow multiple inscriptions in a single transaction. And then when that happens, you could just drag and drop, 100 images, and, basically there will be no fees to inscribe, which in my opinion is a pretty big boom for certain types of inscriptions. Like if you're paying $100 to inscribe some large image and you're paying a $15 fee, it's not that big of a deal. But if you want to just like type a tweet that says like hello world, that that should actually only cost you about like 15-20 cents. And when you tack on a $3 fee to that, it just doesn't become practical. So I'm super pumped for just the trustless inscribing from X and Hero. And I think like in a month or two, like that's going to be the experience across pretty much all these sites.
Yeah, I love that, man. Yeah, I just pulled up your tweet about that, about how inscribing should be this easy as easy as sending a tweet. It's interesting, and from a collectability standpoint, it's like, okay, then what has value if it's right? And we've seen the same thing on Ethereum, right? When NFTs become basically near free to produce, and you get this exponential growth in them. Okay, well, then how do people assign value? Most of them are going to be at or near worthless, and then some are going to be very valuable depending on if it's an artist or if it's early or whatever it may be, or it's innovative, right? And so how do you arrive at value becomes very, very interesting. And speaking of value, time for maybe a little Hoarder's Corner. Woo! Ethord, what do you got for us today, man?
Yo, what's going on? Well, there's a little movie that came out that seems to be making a couple of dollars in the box office, and that's the Mario movie. So no better time than to do a collection based around Nintendo.
Nintendo, man, let's get it.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but Nintendo was a big part of my childhood. The word alone, right, just amidst this era of nostalgia. And, there's just been so many classic games over the years. I was very surprised to learn about their history, though. I don't know about you guys. Okay, let me add, how old of a company do you think Nintendo is?
Bro, Nintendo, isn't it like 1870 or some craziness like that?
Okay, yeah. So it is. It's 134 years old.
And bonkers, man. What did they start with? What they sell? Like they sold like milk in the beginning or something like that. What did they do originally?
Yeah, they're a playing card company. So
Okay.
Back in 1889, they were founded, and they made what's called Hanafuda cards in Japan. And apparently, I didn't know if Nintendo had an actual meaning in Japanese, but apparently it roughly translates to luck of heaven, which is exactly what they had going for them based on, where they started and what they've become.
Yep.
So, and I looked it up. You can buy their Hanafuda cards. I couldn't find any from 1889, but on eBay for around $70, $80, you can get some from the 50s, 60s, 70s around that time.
I mean, they produced a lot of them back in the day, right? I mean, I said milk because it kind of reminded me of like milk caps or bottle caps or something like that, where like they made a lot of them. If I'm not
exactly
wrong.
Yeah. I mean, because they were doing it for so many years too. But they by the 50s they were the top playing card company in Japan. And then they even formed a partnership with Disney. So their cards started having Disney characters on them. And yeah, they were producing millions and millions. But by the 60s, right, in 1960, nobody wanted their goofy ass Dumbo playing cards anymore. And the stock plummeted basically like a shit coin. It went from 900 yen a share all the way down to 60 yen. So yeah, they're saddled in debt. And like we see so many baby projects in the NFT community do, they start pivoting to other ideas. So Nintendo Instant Rice was a thing. And Nintendo Taxi Service, they were literally taking people in cars under the moniker Nintendo. And then my favorite is they even had love hotels.
No.
Yeah, like
Wow.
legitimate sex hotels.
Come on, man.
Owned.
They try to bury that from the history, huh?
Yeah, it was so family friendly now. I know, right? I'm sure they got PR campaigns wiping the internet with that kind of shit right now. But okay, so yeah, then, obviously that was their past, and it wasn't until the 70s they started making kids toys, and that's when they really started to find their way. Their first toy that was a smash hit was the light gun, which, we all played Duck Hunt. It was like an early version of that before they had their own system. So they licensed it out to Magnavox, who had their own video game console. And it was huge in the 70s for that. And then very smartly, Nintendo even got the Magnavox video game console rights to distribute it in Japan. So that was kind of their first foray into distributing a video game console. And then, of course, the 70s was huge with arcades. That's when it really kind of started. So they, they got their foot in that by making a little game called Donkey Kong. And,
a little tiny game.
I don't think it was hard.
Bro, I'm sure none of you were alive, okay? But this was, I'm telling you, arcades. There was an arcade in my town, and it caused quite a stir because the town, a lot of people fought it, and they thought it was going to be like a drug hangout, and a bunch of gangsters were going to be at the arcade. But this was like huge. This was like early 80s, and for a kid to see something like this, you guys don't recognize because you're too young, but to see a video game for the first time was completely transformative. And this is when I think about what a metaverse may be in the future, it's that same sort of feeling where you're seeing things on screen and you can interact with the things on the screen. Was literally mind-blowing. Like it was in 1982, seeing Donkey Kong for the first time. There was nothing else I wanted to do on earth but play Donkey Kong all day. And if I had my mom gave me $5 to go to the arcade. Like you could have given me $5,000. I would have never left. It was absolutely transformative to whatever, a 9-year-old at the time. Incredible.
Hell yeah. I mean, obviously a slightly different era, but I mean, I think a lot of us, myself included, grew up in the arcades, right? We were playing probably more like the X-Men and Simpsons and those types of games, but there was just this vibe. It was the only similar feeling you have is like when you're 21 walking into a casino in Vegas or whatever. But you just get giddy, and all the noises and images and pictures and everyone just all gathered around. I mean, it's this very weird feeling where it's a community, but everyone's still kind of focused doing their own thing. Like you're not necessarily interacting with everyone there, but it's important that you're all there together.
Yep.
But yeah, so okay, Donkey Kong comes out, obviously a huge hit, which is pretty cool too, because right, you play Mario, but his name wasn't Mario at the time; it was Jumpman, which is a nice little fun fact. And then in 1985 is when the NES came out, and that obviously changed everything. That's where you get all the classic games, Mario, Zelda, everything else. And I noticed too, and Americans do this too much, and I fucking hate myself for it, but we're so American centric. The NES was not actually the first version. The Famicom came out 2 years earlier, only in Japan. But they looked way different, but they're the same thing. They're the same console.
Yeah, the one in Japan, I mean, I've seen like a show on it. It was like red. It was really different looking. And I heard they hired this actually quite genius kind of product developer who came up with the kind of gray box look, like that kind of modern-y, robot-y sort of look. And yeah, it's amazing that product design was, that it's so iconic now. But you think about it and think, wow, this was really, you wonder how important that was to the overall success of the product, yeah, I don't know. And even looking at that box, like the Mario Brothers box, like that's still, 30 some odd years later, still gives me like an emotional reaction. Because I remember like seeing that and playing that for the first time in my friend's house. Like I didn't have one of these, but he had one. And dude, complete addiction. It was like shooting crack cocaine into my eyeballs. I literally, literally, we would come home on the bus together. We'd sprint to his house and I would play Mario Brothers until my mom basically called his house and was like, you need to come home right now. And like, that's all we did for like months straight, like months.
That's a great thing too, though, with, the way the Famicom looked, it looked retro, like a 70s thing. And then all of a sudden the NES comes out and it had that 80s futuristic vibe, that same kind of robot that you'd see in like J5, Closed Circuit, all those movies that were coming out around that time to kind of represent the era.
Yep.
And marketing, it's so important. It's so vital.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the biggest ones here. We all know Mario, of course, and I'm scrolling through some of the bigger sales.
So the top three are all Nintendo, which is why I decided to just focus on Nintendo and skip out on all the other companies that have made great games.
Yep.
But yeah, so what drives value is most important thing is cultural relevance. So you'll see in the top three, they're Mario and Zelda.
Yep.
Because those are the definition of kind of, that's what started it all sort of thing. That's what we all remember. And to this day, they continue to make just masterpieces. Breath of the Wild is probably my favorite game of all time. And it only surpassed Link to the Past, which was my favorite game all the way until Breath of the Wild came out. So like those games are they will always be perfect and hopefully never change. But the other thing is the grading, and we see this from cards and everything else. But what I'm finding interesting, I didn't realize is, right, if it's a sports card, it's got its own type of grade, and if it's the guns we were looking at, they get their own kind of grades. They all have their own communities that bring these out. So for video games, it's WATA, WATA. That's who controls the grading for video games. And these are all high scores. So 10 would be perfect, but I don't think there's any 10s. So 9 is pretty much, you need to be a 9 or above. So number 3 is The Legend of Zelda, the No Rev A edition. So I looked into this. No Rev A cartridge means that it had 5 screws in it instead of 3.
Oh, so yeah. It's crazy,
right?
Man.
These are the types of things that define like what can add value. So Rev A means the first revision. And before they made their first revision, it was basically the original. There's way less of these, early production model. And then it has to be in immaculate condition too, right? So this sold for $870,000 in 2021, translating to ETH yesterday, which is definitely more ETH now, but that's 414 ETH. And I mean, there's something special about Legend of Zelda. They have the gold cartridges. In my opinion, it's the best looking video game card. The original Nintendo is the best looking video game cartridge I've ever seen. I'm going to frame it and hang it up on my wall one day.
Very cool.
Okay, number 2, we got Mario 64. That sold again in 2021 for $1.56 million. That's 743 ETH. This one had a WATA score of 9.8, which is basically the highest grade I think any video game of that era has ever gotten. And then the number 1 sale is the original Super Mario Bros. This sold for $2 million. Again, in 2021, we're seeing a pattern. Clearly in 2021, the money printer was going burr and everyone was spending money like crazy on collectibles. And we saw Pokemon sales. We saw Magic sales. now we're seeing these sales. But yeah, 2 million ETH, that is 950 or $2 million. That's 952 ETH. No single game is sold for more, yada, yada, yada. There actually is a grail outside of these that I do want to point to, and that is the Nintendo World Championship 1990 cartridge. So this was a prize that winners got for competing in the Nintendo World Championship. Only around 70 copies of this game exist. Super Mario Bros. Made 40 million copies. So, you know, do the math, 70 versus 40 million. Obviously, none have ever sold for $2 million, but if you ask me, that's the true grail. The game actually is a collection of 3 games. So if you own it, you put it in your NES system, you get Tetris, you get Rad Racer, and of course, you get the original Super Mario Bros. And that's what we got.
Very cool. I want to give a shout out to number 10 on this list, which is Contra. And if any of you all know, you know about Contra. Contra was the bomb. Definitely my favorite game of all time, for sure.
Like pre Souls games, right? That was one of the hardest games because you would die and you'd have to start all over.
Totally. Totally. Key, you got to get that. You got to get the triple gun early and then, just dominate from there. All right. Going around the horn, favorite game of all time. Leo, what do you got, man?
So probably just Mario Kart.
Mario Kart.
Are we talking about Nintendo games?
Yeah, the favorite Nintendo.
Yeah, so as a kid, I went over to a friend's house and they had Mario Kart, and it was like the coolest shit ever. My parents didn't let me play video games until middle school. I was like totally locked out, but like I played Mario Kart at this kid's house, and it was like, oh my god, this is like the coolest, like basically multiplayer gaming as like, a 9-year-old or something.
Yep.
It's pretty incredible. I honestly, growing up with Fortnite or something would just be next level. Today, these kids have it. Like, they don't realize how good they have it.
Dude, I'm telling, I think we're in a group chat and we were all talking about how we've, managed to kick our video game habits. I mean, it is like, for young kids, it's the most addictive thing. Like, you actually have to, as an adult, like, make a conscious decision to stop video games. And it really is. It's literally, it's crack cocaine. And everybody I know, I mean, literally every person in that chat was like, yeah, I had to kick it, here or there. I actually reinstalled my video game addiction like in my mid-30s when I had a lot of time on my hand. And it was like, bro, I had to drop it again. I've had to give it up twice. So I've been on the wagon twice. Mafiko, what's up, man?
Yo. Just quick one on the gaming and everything. That was my, like, me growing up. I was so addicted to World of Warcraft, League of Legends, etc. But I mean, maybe I'm a bit biased here. I feel like the time I spent in those games really did equip me with the skills to do what I do now in a strange way. I just wonder if it's like that for you guys in terms of, like, I think about it, being early to tech, being early to these games and things like that kind of got me to, strangely enough, where I am now in terms of being early NFTs and then also just everything else.
Yeah, I don't know.
Hey, I could answer this.
Yeah, go ahead.
100%, right? I mean, don't we kind of have Ethereum because Vitalik got pissed about World of Warcraft or something like that, right? I can't remember the exact, but it does. It molds you for sure.
It does. I was gonna layer on. There was one experience I had. It was like Sega Genesis had just come out, and you guys know, obviously, Sega Genesis was this huge console, but it had just come out, and there was this other one. I think it was called NEC 64 or something like that. It had 64 bits, while the Genesis was like 32 bits, and they kind of both came out at the same time, and I, being a little bit contrarian, people were like, oh, Sega, it's cool. And I was like, no, I'm going to get the 64 bits because the 64 is, twice as big as 32. So this is going to be awesome. And the main game for this was Bonk. It was like this caveman dude who bonked. You would basically headbutt the adversaries in the game. Like, he would jump and headbutt people. Like, I'm not lying. This was, if you ever look it up, look up this stupid game. Anyway, turns out I picked like the wrong horse. And part of me has learned a lot from in business from this. It's like, if you pick the wrong horse, it doesn't matter how good the jockey is. Like picking the wrong one, picking the one where consensus has said, this is the one, better to throw your money and your time and your energy into the one that's actually already got consensus. Just to get back to this kind of Bitcoin ordinals thing. I don't know. That's what I've learned. That's what video games taught me. Like I learned my lesson from, picking the bad console. I don't know. Jake, you got any lessons from video games?
Oh man, I also used to have like a huge gaming addiction. Whenever you say Nintendo, I always go to Nintendo 64 as the first thing. But I was a big Duck Hunt fan. If you go to just like the old school Nintendo,
really, you like
guns.
that? You like the Duck Hunt, man?
Dude, yeah, I like the interactive stuff was pretty fun. I mean, it was also packaged on the other side with Mario, so you're kind of just like forced to have both of them. A big Donkey Kong person, but when it comes to 64, which was the generation right after, maybe that's past Adam's gaming time, was GoldenEye was like my favorite.
Nice.
Which was also one of the most highest selling. It was one of the highest selling Nintendo games ever, I believe.
Yep. So Dogfather,
but
you got to give us your. Oh wait, Dogfather wasn't allowed to play video games. He had to just go out and play football.
Yeah, I was this poor kid with just a boring PC on the desk and just some Tetris, and then I was playing soccer all day. And when I was around at my friends' houses, they were kind of like, tearing me apart because I was not trained. So that was no big fun. So I was not a big gamer. So I have to admit.
Man, you're so lucky, dude. No wonder you're so productive in your adult life, man. You didn't waste. I mean, you gotta think how many hours, literally years of my life I've spent playing video games. It's incredible, man. It's incredible. They are an addictive and certainly really important part of our culture. There's no doubt about that. So anyway, we're at about 90 minutes. Anybody else have anything else to chime in here before we wrap up?
I mean, we've been, saying like, yes, video games are addicting, but I just wanted to kind of put this out there. Like, if you're able to have self-control, like I'm going to be completely honest, I'm not. Like, I get too sucked in, it almost becomes my reality.
100%.
But I think most people, you can game like an hour a day and have like a very healthy gaming hobby. It's just, there's there's like certain people, perhaps the same people who are degenerate crypto people on stage, that probably get addicted to stuff pretty easily. Just throwing that out there. Like gaming, there's lots of positive aspects to gaming. I think it's especially like the competitive nature of it, like much more stimulating and probably healthier for your brain than just like mindlessly watching, something on TV. So
yep.
Lots to be said for gaming. I just think it's everything in moderation, right?
Absolutely. And I think, the socialite aspect of it is it's really important. I think for me and my friends back in the old days, we were literally sitting in the same room together, and it was a very social experience. And I think it still very much is today. When I watch my kid play, he's always playing with other people. It's almost never a solitary experience. So that in itself is very positive. And I'll think good things in moderation. All right, guys, thanks so much for joining, and we'll see you next week. Take care, guys.
See you guys.